Rest the palms of your hands on the tops of your thighs. If that's comfortable, and close your eyes. Not really looking, but just letting the eyes rest.
I've taken a lot of, this is not the first Buddhism class I've taken, and I've learned about it from a theoretical standpoint, but I want to engage with people who are actually part of this religion and see.
The difference between what people's stereotypes are about Buddhism and how those actually come into play in practice.
And where does Buddhism and practice fit in all of this? So, to what extent is Buddhism, an ethnic practice in the U.S.? To what extent have, foreigners, quote unquote, embraced Buddhism?
Okay, so what are we gonna do?
So, I think the first thing we can probably try to do is, let's maybe, put together some word associations. I think it'd be interesting to just get random Duke students, to be our friends. They should have, different backgrounds, ideally. And then, we ask them a couple of word associations. What do you think some of the words we should use?
Let's go with, pretty simple ones, like Buddhism, reincarnation,
Maybe
Karma. Yeah.
And
Sounds
then maybe
good.
we should ask them what they think about when they hear the word hear Buddha.
Okay.
As well. Let's just see what happens.
The first word that comes to mind when you hear the word Buddhism.
Caterpillar.
What about karma?
Macchiato.
What about reincarnation?
Jesus.
That's actually good. What's the first word that comes to mind when we hear Buddhism?
Circle.
What about reincarnation?
Circle.
What about karma?
Trees.
Is just Buddhism.
Meditation.
Karma.
Buddha.
Reincarnation.
Afterlife.
Buddhism.
Relaxation, prayer,
What about?
and centering.
Okay. What about karma?
Yeah, karma. Oh, what? I'm messing this up. Equality.
And reincarnation.
Afterlife.
What are we up to right now?
The first word is Buddhism.
Buddhi.
2, karma.
Karma.
3, reincarnation.
Reincarnation.
That's your word?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I don't know. This stuff is not great. It's
Yeah.
it's not really learning a whole lot.
Yeah.
We really need to change focus a little bit. Hopefully next week when we go to the Duke meditation session, we can maybe find something else that'll be a little more worthwhile.
Yeah, I know. Charlie that was terrible. That was like this.
So Autry,
Yes.
how are you feeling?
Feeling pretty optimistic. I'm excited to find out, more about, the Buddhist community at Duke. So we'll see what happens.
Met one woman, her heart was so frozen, she couldn't do any metta for anything. And finally he said, well, do you have any plants at home? She said, yes, I love my plants. I said, great, do metta for your plants. And so she started doing metta for her plants, and eventually, the icebergs began to melt, and she was able to do that.
Yo, what's up, dude? How's it going, man? Do you have a couple minutes to talk?
Yeah, sure, definitely.
So after this most recent meditation session, I just wanted to talk about maybe refocusing, just because, as we had sort of seen in our previous footage, it wasn't really going in the direction that we wanted and getting the sort of information that we really are interested to learn about. So I was thinking about sort of refocusing the project a little bit, maybe leaning towards the trying to understand the Buddhist identity more in America.
Okay.
and-
How do you think we would be able to do that? I just feel like what are your ideas of changing the book? Yeah.
Well, I think one of the best ways to do it, obviously, is interview people who are involved at Duke, and I mean, all around the area as well. Interview them and talk about how they sort of found Buddhism, how they found meditation, and why they do it.
Okay. Definitely. Yeah, I mean, I think that, we saw the interviews with the word associations and stuff. I think that it makes a lot of sense to just talk with people. I think we can have some fruitful conversations. So, why don't we, meet up before class and just, figure out a game plan for interviewing more people.
That sounds good. We'll meet up and run it by Jocelyn, so it'll be good.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good.
All right, dude.
Take it easy, man.
Yeah, you too. I'll see you later.
Yeah, sleep
Peace.
well. See ya. Bye.
And for most of high school and college, I was actually considered myself atheist in that sort of strong sense of atheism, where it's no religion.
Yeah.
And actually, for a long time, because of that sort of aversion to religion, that actually kept me away from Buddhism also, because I had all these conceptions of what Buddhism was, and I thought Buddhism was just another religion, and I thought they prayed to the Buddha, and I thought you had to believe in reincarnation and karma, and it was all this mysticism. And so that actually kept me out of Buddhism for a long time, because I just thought it was another religion, and I didn't want any part of it.
I do not consider myself to be a Buddhist. I consider myself to be an atheist with some Buddhist tendencies and Buddhist beliefs. And I think it may have been the Buddha who said that we are all Buddhists. And I also kind of believe that. So it's not my primary identity, but it is the kind of belief system that I think welcomes everyone, and unlike many others, it doesn't demand the same type of overall allegiance, that I feel comfortable welcoming different parts of Buddhism and different parts of atheism.
Okay. Do you consider yourself a Buddhist?
Not really. I mean, I think I'm more of a humanist who practices elements of Buddhism. So I call myself a humanist, really.
I was wondering whether or not you identify as a Buddhist. That's my first question.
If I'm trying to act cool, maybe, but generally no. I've always been fascinated by religion, and so maybe that's where I started. I was a philosophy major in college, as well as a biology major, so I sort of tapped into Buddhism after I had discovered all of the Western philosophies. And I guess what really tipped me off, what attracted me to Buddhism was stories about the Buddha, mindfulness, and sort of this lofty idea of nirvana, which is sort of endlessly appealing to everybody, I assume.
So do you consider yourself to be a Buddhist?
Yeah, I do consider myself a Buddhist, but there are so many types of Buddhism that it's, whenever somebody asks me if I'm a Buddhist, I always pause for a second and think, well, what do they mean by Buddhism? What do they mean by a Buddhist? I consider myself Buddhist because I practice the teachings of the Buddha, but it's a very specific type of Buddhism or Buddhist that I am. So for some people, Buddhism is more of a religion, and it's about practicing rituals and doing these sorts of things. And for some people, it's more of a practice just in terms of meditation and mindfulness. So for me, it really is that latter sense, where I still consider myself atheist, but also a Buddhist.
Okay. It's fascinating.
I think Buddhism, it's hard to categorize Buddhism because, at Duke, for example, the class you're taking, Buddhism is in the religion department. And so the religion department is associated with very organized religions that have lots of doctrines and tenets, like Christianity and Islam and Judaism. They have elaborate philosophies about how one qualifies as one of those things. And maybe Buddhism does too, but I think Buddhism also has a second life or an existence as just kind of a set of ideas or values that don't really require you to believe in God or supernatural things. So yeah, my Buddhism definitely falls in that second category. That
It's a really tricky question.
Yeah.
It's kind of a heavy question. I think people are afraid. I don't know. So personally, I don't know enough about the different Buddhist traditions to feel like I could label myself that way.
Okay.
And also would feel like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's, I guess, to label yourself as a Buddhist. I don't know if it's tricky. I mean, I don't know how heavy the label is. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if you have to be born into it. I don't know if you have to. It's something I don't understand very well, and it seems like a lot of people that I talk to about it are afraid to label themselves. And the question often comes up: should we be labeling ourselves? In this old meditation group I used to sit in college, we were confused whether we should even call it the Buddhist group, because there's a Catholic, a Jew, there's all sorts of different religious stripes in the group, but we all did Buddhist things. So it was confusing.
I think it's 100% that person's how they identify, and that is the only that there's no other qualification.
Okay.
Like, my whole life is perfect. Like, I couldn't really have imagined it any better. But for some reason, even though everything was going so well, I still was sort of suffering with anxiety and depression. And I just wasn't really happy, and I wasn't sure why. Because everything, like, anything I put my mind to, I could accomplish. And I realized that accomplishing these things wasn't making me happy. So I took a year off from school after I graduated, and I was sort of traveling all over the world. I was working as a camp counselor in Singapore, and ended up going to India, and was just trying to figure out what happiness meant and how to become happy.
I come to meditation because just like the way Duke life is structured, unfortunately, I have to like carve out explicit time to come back to myself, get in touch with my own feelings, become mindful of the things that I'm grateful about, the things that are stressing me out, the things that, my goals, things that I look forward to. Like, that kind of in-tuneness with myself is like really hard to get at Duke. So ideally, you could be like mindful or meditative like throughout your day, but just like I'm too busy to do that. So I like feel like I have to have like, okay, well, on Mondays at 7 o'clock I know I can come to the Buddhist meditation community, and like I know that time will be devoted to that. So
I have my own personal practice, which is daily.
Okay.
So meditation is a very central part of my life.
Okay.
So for me, it's definitely much more about the here and now. It's about cultivating awareness of yourself and of others and of the present moment.
Okay.
It's about cultivating. It's about, when I say cultivating, I mean just practicing, kind of almost, tilling the soil, getting the soil ready to grow, nice, compassionate feelings and just awareness.
I come to meditation because it helps me center myself and know myself, and also just practically it helps me deal with all the stress of being a graduate student.
Okay. So I actually use what I've learned from Buddhism and what I've learned from meditating in my daily life in many, many ways on a daily basis. So just as they were saying in the last meeting about addiction, and realizing this process of rationalization as it's beginning to occur. This happens in so many parts of my life that I'm still working on everything.
The things that I realized after discovering Buddhism and getting into meditation is that it really is a practice. I mean, meditation is a lot like gardening. So if you imagine your mind is like this rich, fertile soil, and every day you have experiences, and some of them are good experiences and bad experiences, and each one of those experiences is like a little seed that gets planted in your soil. And if you don't, watch carefully what's going on in that garden, then these large, plants of anger or lust or greed or jealousy might come up. And meditation is really about taking care about what's going on in that soil.
I think Buddhism historically and still even today is sort of thought as like an Eastern thing, and it's still highly compartmentalized, which is unfortunate because I really think that the ideas of Buddhism are universal and can apply to everybody regardless of faith, regardless of whether you believe in a deity or any sort of higher power. The idea of Buddhism, like settling yourself in your own body and trying to figure out your own existence for yourself, is cross-discipline and like is cross-religion.
All right, dude, we're gonna head out to the Shambhala Center. All right, sounds good.
Some things aren't meant to be, but you'll never find the answers till you set your old heart free. Until you set your old heart free.
I was going through a hard time, and I wasn't really looking for Buddhism particularly, but I was hopeful that meditation would be helpful. And I took, we have these classes called Shambhala training, and I'd never meditated before really, and the first time I did this weekend retreat here with Shambhala training level 1.
And I started looking around for some kind of spiritual path in the 70s. And I didn't know, nobody knew much about Buddhism back then, but I saw some ad in the paper for a couple months worth of program up in Vermont, and I thought, well, I'll try that out.
Yeah.
It turned out to be 10 hours a day of meditation. I didn't realize that at the time, but it was very helpful.
Okay.
Just before I became a monk, I didn't know about Buddhism. Nothing. Only the name of the Buddha. But I met my master. I want to be like him. He's very gentle and very wise.
Identity, like what makes you a Buddhist?
Well, for me, it's recognizing that there is a very clear path, and it's not based on having to believe in something or worship anything in particular. It's a path that turns you back into yourself.
Well, what makes you Buddhist is you've taken refuge vows, and all three of us have. And that means you take refuge in the Buddha as an example, in the Dharma as the teachings, and the Sangha, which is your immediate community. So there's sort of an official step to becoming a Buddhist.
I read ahead and I saw some of your questions, and the book that came to mind was this. It's called What Makes You Not a Buddhist? By Dzongsar Jamyang Khyentse. And there's 4 things that I think kind of typify. Number 1, that all phenomena is there's impermanence. Number 1, we know that there's impermanence. Number 2, emotions can bring suffering and pain. Number 3, there's things that we hold to be permanent.
What is the biggest difference you see? Most of American practitioners, they are interested in decrease their stress and their some problem. Many Americans still they don't accept no I the meaning.
We relate to each other through devices and iPhones and iPads and apps and things like that, and so that a social interaction undeniably that previous generations haven't had is Twitter and Facebook and things like that to see what's going on in the world. And increasingly, I think that can lead towards even a loneliness. When we encounter the practice of meditation and when we study the teachings of Buddhism specifically, that is, I think, a major influence.
I think in the early days, more in the 70s and 80s, people were definitely much more interested in a spiritual path. And now the influence of Buddhism in the mainstream is much more associated with, hospital-based programs to alleviate chronic conditions and pain and that sort of thing. And so both are going on, but in the media, it's the most popular programs are focused on, alleviating your anxiety and helping your physiological problems.
We take refuge as Buddhists. We follow the three jewels. But there's a Vajrayana path in Buddhism where you can be enlightened in this lifetime. And that's very radical. We can all be Buddhists, technically. And the Buddha gave us that example. That's not something for another lifetime. We can wake up now on the spot. Mm-hmm. That's radical. Number two is that, and having been raised sort of in a Judeo-Christian sort of manner, not only can we take refuge, but we can also take a bodhisattva vow. And that is something completely radical that I don't think the Christian tradition has an equal to. Mm-hmm. Other than sainthood. Yeah. Not only will you forego nirvana for this lifetime, but for all lifetimes until all beings are free and have been enlightened. And that's an incredibly radical, incredibly beautiful, compassionate vow.
I changed the view of life. Before becoming a monk, before learning Buddhism, I thought I am this body and mind is me, like that. But after learning Buddhism, I changed. My life is not only this body, but also my life is connected all together.
The amount of aspects of Buddhism that they incorporate into their daily lives are different, and they might not necessarily think of Buddhism as a religion, even though that they're part of this community that's practicing Buddhism.
Most religions are about the relationship of you with some other entity, God or heaven or hell or something like that. And I feel like what I learned today most importantly is that this is all about your relationship with yourself and benefiting the world by helping the relationship with yourself more.
The thing about meditating is that it is very personal, it's very inward, and that can make it hard for you to feel like you're there, like you're really participating in the correct or appropriate manner. So I think that for people who do practice and identify with Buddhism, they've kind of overcome that, and it's very hard to do. But I think that's one reason why so few people are very open about their practice, because it is so inward and it is intimidating.
Buddhism has become a part of healing. It's become integrated into our medical system. And so that's also one of the ways in which Buddhism is practiced and how the average American engages with Buddhism on a daily basis.
There were no moral questions that were brought into play in the grander scheme of things. It was all about sort of trying to figure out why you do the things you do.
When we began this documentary, we had no idea where this journey would lead us. We had an interest in examining why so many Americans will say, "I practice Buddhism," but will not say, "I am Buddhist." We thought we would start by cataloging and contextualizing stereotypes about Buddhism. But once we started, we realized that we didn't really have a complete understanding of what it meant to be Buddhist in America. This led us to explore various Buddhist groups in Durham in hopes of capturing the Buddhist identity in America.
Ultimately, we wanted to present the class with the opinions and experiences of Buddhist practitioners as well as our own thoughts as we immersed ourselves in meditation sessions, interviews, and traveled to temples in the area. While at times, the lack of centralized American Buddhist community may seem like a weakness, we came to understand that this characteristic is what attracts so many diverse followers.
People can find anything in Buddhism, whether it be 15 minutes of daily meditation, a truth of life, or a fantastical story of the Buddha. The Buddhist identity in America is not static, but highly dynamic. It incorporates Eastern tradition, Western philosophy, and is based heavily in meditation practices. Buddhism's appeal is ubiquitous in the United States, and its practitioners represent a vibrant and diverse community. Buddhism, in being Buddhist, is decidedly not a package, nor can it be summarized in a set of beliefs or practices. It is ethnocentric and closed-minded of us to think that it should be. We began this documentary searching for the green tea Buddhist. Instead, what we found was a vivacious and enthusiastic community in our own backyards. Let's do it.
Once upon a time, a few cycles ago, I was just a dog. My karma had it sewed. You found me, you found me, you found me. I guess you said to me that there's no afterlife, and finally I'll see it's all suffering and strife for me, for me, for me. It's all weird, 'cause next I could be a flea, and I realized there is no me. Yeah, I knew you were Buddha when you walked in, so shame on me.